Sylvia Likens was just 16 years old when she suffered one of the most horrifying deaths in American history. Tortured, starved, and abused by her caretaker, Gertrude Baniszewski, and a group of neighborhood children, Sylvia's story is a haunting reminder of how evil can thrive in plain sight. Today, we're diving into the disturbing case of the murder of Sylvia Likens.
We love you so, we miss you, and I will see you again someday.
Trigger warning, this video contains details of abuse and violence that some viewers may find distressing. The beginning. Sylvia Likens was born on January 3, 1949, to carnival workers Lester and Betty Likens. Sylvia and her siblings often bounced between homes as their parents traveled for work. In July 1965, Sylvia and her younger sister Jenny, who had polio and used leg braces, were left in the care of Gertrude Baniszewski, a mother of 7 children in Indianapolis, while their parents worked out of state. Lester paid Gertrude $20 a week to care for the girls. Initially, it seemed like a practical arrangement, but it quickly became a living nightmare for Sylvia. The abuse begins. The abuse started with Gertrude targeting Sylvia for minor offenses, such as eating too much or being too pretty. Gertrude, a frail and deeply unstable woman, lived in squalor with her children, often taking out her frustrations on Sylvia. When the weekly payments from Sylvia's parents were late, Gertrude's anger escalated. She began beating Sylvia with paddles and belts, often accusing her of lying or stealing. The punishments quickly became more severe, and soon Gertrude's children, and even neighborhood kids, were encouraged to join in the abuse. A house of horrors. Sylvia was subjected to unspeakable torture over the next 3 months. She was forced to strip naked and perform humiliating acts in front of others. She was burned with cigarettes, beaten regularly, and denied food and water. Her sister Jenny, who was also living in the home, was too terrified to intervene. The worst moments occurred in the basement, where Sylvia was eventually confined. Gertrude and her children treated Sylvia as less than human, often tying her up and forcing her to eat her own vomit or feces. The neighborhood children, some as young as 10, joined in, lured by Gertrude's approval and the sense of power over Sylvia. One of the most shocking acts of cruelty came when Gertrude used a heated needle to carve the words, "I'm a prostitute and proud of it," into Sylvia's stomach. The final days. By late October 1965, Sylvia was gravely ill. She was covered in bruises, burns, and open wounds, and she could barely move or speak. Despite her condition, Gertrude refused to seek medical attention, instead mocking Sylvia's suffering. On October 26, 1965, Sylvia attempted to escape, but was too weak to get far. Gertrude and her children beat her again, and Sylvia collapsed. Later that day, Sylvia died from a brain hemorrhage, shock, and malnutrition. The investigation. Jenny, Sylvia's younger sister, confided in a neighbor shortly after Sylvia's death, saying, "Get me out of here and I'll tell you everything." The neighbor called the police, who arrived to find Sylvia's lifeless body in the home. Gertrude claimed Sylvia had run away and returned injured, but her story quickly fell apart under questioning. The autopsy revealed the extent of Sylvia's injuries: more than 150 wounds, malnutrition, and signs of prolonged abuse. The truth of what happened in Gertrude's house shocked the nation. The trial.
From Indiana, this time the criminal is getting out of jail, but as E.D. Magnus reports, not without a great deal of controversy.
The trial began in 1966 with Gertrude Baniszewski and several of her children, along with 2 neighborhood boys charged with Sylvia's murder. Gertrude pleaded not guilty, blaming the children for most of the abuse. However, the evidence and testimonies painted a damning picture of her role as the orchestrator of the torture. Gertrude was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Her eldest daughter, Paula, was convicted of second-degree murder, while the other participants received lesser sentences. Gertrude was paroled in 1985 after serving 20 years, sparking outrage among those who remembered Sylvia's case.
I can't undo it, and I'm sorry. That's all I can say. And I ask him to forgive me. That's all I can tell you.
She lived under an assumed name until her death in 1990. The legacy of Sylvia Likens. The murder of Sylvia Likens remains one of the most horrifying child abuse cases in American history. It highlighted the dangers of systemic neglect, the capacity for group cruelty, and the failure of community intervention. Today, Sylvia's memory is honored with a memorial in Indianapolis, a reminder of her short life and the horrors she endured. Her story serves as a stark warning of the consequences of apathy and inaction in the face of abuse. Sylvia Likens' story is a haunting example of how evil can thrive when people look the other way. What do you think about this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the Crim Vault, and click the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the darkest corners of history. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.